Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something massive, a really significant shift coming up fast in U.S. immigration for skilled workers. We're talking about the new $100,000 H-1B visa fee overhaul. And this isn't just about big companies, it affects the careers and actual lives of tens of thousands of professionals globally.
It really is. You use the word massive, and I think that's right. It feels almost seismic in the world of skilled migration. The absolute core fact we need to focus on is this specific directive. President Trump has imposed a $100,000 annual fee that's per year, per worker, paid by the employer for each H-1B visa holder.
Wow, annual, okay.
And it's not just a proposal floating around. This is set in stone, an enforceable order. It becomes effective sharply at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time on September 21, 2025. And understandably, this has triggered, huge uncertainty, immediate, both for companies and critically for those thousands of foreign workers, especially folks from places like India who, as you know, make up the largest group of H-1B holders.
$100,000 a year per employee. That figure is just staggering. So our mission today, let's cut through maybe some of the panic, unpack what this order specifically says. We need to get clear on who's most affected, the big tech firms, sure, but also down to the individual worker. And crucially, let's try and lay out a clear roadmap for navigating this, both right now and for the longer term.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics then. $100,000. That's an extraordinary number. Is this fee just aimed at people applying for the first time? Or is it wider than that? And maybe just a quick reminder, what exactly is the H-1B visa for anyone needing a refresher?
Yeah, good point. So the H-1B, fundamentally, it lets U.S. companies hire foreign workers for specialized jobs, usually roles needing at least a bachelor's degree, often in science, tech, engineering, math, STEM fields. And this new $100,000 fee, that's the heart of this policy. It's mandatory, it's annual, and the employer pays it. Now, crucially, to your question, the net is very wide. It's not just for new petitions filed after September 21st next year. No, it applies to basically every relevant action an employer takes after that date. Every action? Like what?
So, yes, new petitions, but also extensions or renewals for people already here on an H-1B, and even transfers. When an H-1B worker moves from company A to company B, if that happens after the deadline, the new employer has to pay. The clock starts ticking right on September 21st. File a renewal September 22nd, 2025. Boom, the fee applies.
So this just radically changes the whole economic picture for employers. It's not just a big upfront cost to hire someone. It's this ongoing massive operational expense tied to that specific person. What's the official reason? What's the stated rationale for making the fee so incredibly high?
Well, the stated purpose is pretty unambiguous. It's designed as a major financial disincentive. The goal is to significantly reduce how much U.S. companies rely on foreign labor. By making it this expensive, the idea is to push companies, especially those hiring lots of foreign workers or using outsourcing models to either hire American workers instead or completely rethink their business strategies.
Right. And that's where the rubber meets the road for corporate finances.
Yeah.
A $100,000 annual fee on top of what might already be a pretty high salary for a skilled worker, say $150K, $200K. You're suddenly talking about a 50, maybe 60% increase in the total cost of employing that person. Which specific industries or companies are feeling this the most?
Yeah, the impact is definitely concentrated. It hits hardest on firms that use the H-1B program heavily at volume. We're talking the big tech players, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and also big financial institutions, consulting firms, those specialized IT outsourcing companies. They get named specifically because they rely so much on H-1B talent, often for those critical tech roles, maybe entry to mid-level here in the U.S.
Okay, so the natural business reaction to a huge, unexpected cost like this is, how do we avoid it or lessen it? Are these giant companies just going to, suck it up and pay $100,000 for every single worker? Or are we looking at a bigger shift in how they operate?
Absorbing the cost. That's likely going to be the exception, not the rule. Maybe for truly mission-critical people, maybe high-level executives. But for the vast majority, the math has just changed dramatically. For smaller companies, mid-sized tech firms, we're hearing about immediate risks of just freezing H-1B hiring altogether or stopping sponsorship completely because they just can't afford it. And for the bigger players, it really seems to come down to two main strategic shifts. First, they'll likely accelerate outsourcing those jobs, sending the work overseas to cheaper labor markets, maybe their own global offices. Second, they'll probably double down on automation, replacing human roles with AI or automated systems. Because, the financial argument for spending big on automation just got a whole lot stronger.
That second point, automation, that raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Speeding up automation, that's not like flipping a switch. It takes time, right? Does that September 2025 deadline actually give companies enough time to automate potentially thousands of complex jobs? Or is outsourcing just the quicker, more practical fix for, say, 2026?
Oh, outsourcing is definitely the faster escape hatch, no question. Automation, especially for complex roles or in regulated industries like finance, that takes years. Implementation, testing, compliance. So in the short term, thinking late 2025 into 2026, the information really points towards a rapid push, a push of tech jobs moving out of the US rather than immediate large-scale automation replacing them domestically. And that also means, well, job mobility for H-1B workers already here, that's about to get incredibly difficult.
Okay, let's shift focus then from the company view to the individual, the person actually holding the H-1B. What does this policy mean for them and their families? Does it make a difference if they're physically inside the U.S. right now versus outside? And how does that September 21st date act like a sort of firewall?
It makes a huge difference. Being inside versus outside the U.S. on September 21st, 2025, well, the stakes are incredibly high. It's a critical differentiator. So for folks inside the U.S. right now, assuming their current visa stamp is valid, they have some short-term safety, they're okay for now. Their biggest worry becomes their renewal date. Let's say someone got their H-1B approved late 2024. They're probably okay until sometime in 2027. But in 2027, when that renewal comes up, their employer must pay the $100,000 fee to keep them employed legally. If the employer won't or can't pay, that worker's authorized stay just ends. So it creates this massive cloud of uncertainty over every single upcoming renewal.
Okay, and what about travel? This seems to be a huge point of concern. What's the single most critical piece of advice for H-1B holders right now regarding international travel? Why is it suddenly so risky?
The advice is stark, honestly. It's avoid all non-essential international travel after September 21st, 2025. Full stop. The reason is a bit technical, but the consequence is severe. When an H-1B worker travels abroad and comes back, they have to seek admission at the border, right? Even with a valid visa stamp in their passport. Now, if this new fee is in effect, and the employer hasn't prepaid that $100,000 for that fiscal year as part of the sponsorship, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, they could view the petition as financially non-compliant, and they could deny re-entry right there at the airport.
Oh, wow. Just deny entry.
Yes, immediate denial of entry, effectively locking the worker out of the country, even if they had a valid visa and job waiting for them just hours before.
That sounds absolutely terrifying, especially for someone maybe visiting family abroad right now. If a worker or maybe their spouse or child on an H-4 visa is outside the U.S. currently, what's the clear warning they're getting?
The warning is crystal clear, and it's urgent. Companies are telling their H-1B employees and their dependents, the H-4 holders, to return immediately. They must be physically back inside the U.S. before that September 2025 deadline. Because if they're outside after that date, any attempt to come back or even enter for the first time if they just got approved, it immediately triggers that $100,000 fee requirement for the employer. That makes the cost hurdle for just letting them in so high, they risk being stranded outside indefinitely. And this urgency, it absolutely applies just as much to spouses and kids on H-4s. Get them back too.
Okay, let's make this concrete. We've been tracking the hypothetical case of a worker from India. First time H-1B got approved maybe October 2024, so it's valid until 2027. And he stayed inside the U.S. the whole time. What's his immediate risk level right now? And what's his longer-term risk?
Okay, for him, immediate risk. Very low. Provided he stays put, doesn't travel internationally, he's covered under the old rules until his renewal date, sometime in 2027. But his long-term risk, that's severe. His employer basically has a little under 2 years to decide. Is this employee's role worth an extra $100,000 per year starting in 2027? If the answer is no, he's suddenly in a scramble. He either has to find a new job with an employer willing to pay that huge transfer fee, or, and this becomes much more critical, find a pathway to a green card to permanent residency.
And let's take that same worker. He feels safe until 2027. What if he decides, okay, I'll just pop home for a holiday in, say, December 2025?
That would be potentially financially catastrophic for his employer and life-altering for him. By December 2025, the fee rule is fully in effect, mandatory. When he tries to re-enter the U.S., CBP could absolutely demand proof that $100,000 fee has been paid for the upcoming fiscal year, say for 2026 coverage. But his employer wouldn't have paid it yet, right? But it wasn't due until his renewal in 2027 under the old logic. So he faces a very high probability of being denied entry. His U.S. job is gone, just like that. The travel warning in his case effectively becomes a travel ban. So if we zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, the whole game has changed for H-1B workers. Relying on those 3-year visa renewals, that strategy is now incredibly risky. The focus must shift towards securing long-term stability. And really, the primary goal now has to be permanent residency, what most people call getting a green card. So what are the actual paths forward now that H-1B stability looks so shaky?
Yeah, okay, let's map out those strategies. Based on the information we have, there seem to be about 4 core paths. And the priority for anyone wanting to stay in the US has clearly shifted. We have to start by saying that just staying on the H-1B, well, it's become a gamble, hasn't it?
It really has. So path 1, stay on H-1B. Like we said, this is only really workable if your employer explicitly agrees to pay that $100,000 fee every year. This is probably going to become a major negotiation point. Realistically, only the highest value, most critical employees, the ones who are hardest to replace, will likely get that commitment, and probably only from the very largest companies with deep pockets.
Okay, so path 1 is tough. What about path 2? Change employer. Finding a new job used to be, well, not easy, but definitely doable for H-1B holders. How does this fee change that?
It cripples job mobility severely. Because think about it. Any new employer who wants to hire you and sponsor your H-1B transfer, they also have to immediately pay that $100,000 fee right up front, assuming it's after the deadline. So the number of companies even willing to consider hiring an H-1B worker from another company has shrunk dramatically overnight. If you're looking to transfer, you're not just competing based on your skills anymore, you're competing on whether you're worth that extra $100 K premium to a potentially smaller company. It's a huge barrier. Which brings us to path 3, green card, permanent residency. This really emerges as the only path to true long-term security now. Most H-1B holders aim for this through their employer, usually under the EB-2 category for advanced degrees or EB-3 for skilled professionals. And the message here has to be, start the process now. There's extreme urgency.
Why so urgent? Especially, you mentioned, for applicants from India.
Yeah, because of the per-entry limits on green cards, the backlog, the waiting line. For Indian nationals in those main employment categories, EB-2 and EB-3, it's staggering. We're often talking decades. Literally decades. Getting a green card is a marathon, not a sprint. The single most important step is getting your application filed to establish your priority date. That date is like your timestamp. It holds your place in that massive queue. Even if the wait is 10, 15 years or more, logging in that priority date now is crucial. It provides certain protections or work authorization possibilities long after your H-1B might expire or become too expensive for your employer to renew. And furthermore, anyone with really strong credentials, exceptional achievements, they should immediately look into self-sponsored green card options. These can bypass the employer dependency and sometimes bypass the huge backlogs. We're talking about the EB-1A category for extraordinary ability or national interest waiver, the NIW. This lets you petition for yourself if you can prove your work is important to the U.S. national interest. That's a critical option for people in, say, advanced scientific research, cutting-edge tech, areas like that.
Okay, and finally, path 4. Alternative visas. You mentioned these are more niche, but they avoid the H-1B fee.
Exactly. They bypass the H-1B category and its associated fee entirely. They're specialized, but important to know about. Things like the L-1 visa, that's for intercompany transfers. So if you worked for a multinational company abroad for at least a year in a managerial role or one requiring specialized knowledge, they might be able to transfer you to the U.S. on an L-1. Or the O-1 visa, again for extraordinary ability in fields like sciences, arts, business, athletics. They have high standards, obviously, but for those who qualify, they are stable, fee-exempt options. Definitely worth discussing with Immigration Counsel immediately if you think you might fit.
This has been, well, a necessary but pretty sobering analysis. Let's try and boil all this down into a clear, actionable checklist for listeners. The essential do's and don'ts for dealing with this massive policy shift.
Absolutely. The immediate priorities have to be stability, clear communication, and planning proactively for permanence. So the deterrents. First, do stay inside the U.S. if you're already here. Don't risk traveling unnecessarily. Second, if you are abroad, do return immediately. You and your family need to be back before September 21, 2025, urgently. Third, do talk to your employer right now. Ask them directly about their commitment, their plan regarding paying that $100,000 fee for your future renewal. Don't just wait and hope. And fourth, do start or push forward your green card sponsorship process immediately. Get that priority date locked in, especially if you're from a country facing long backlogs like India.
Okay, those are the critical actions to take. What about the don'ts? What are the potential mistakes people could make in this kind of uncertain situation? Right, the don'ts. First, don't travel abroad casually after September 21, 2025. Treat any potential trip with extreme caution. Second, don't assume your dependents on H-4 visas are somehow exempt if they're abroad. That urgent return warning includes them. Bring them back too. Third, don't rely solely on rumors or hope that this policy gets canceled or changed before the deadline. You have to plan based on the reality that it's currently set to be enforced. And finally, don't wait until your H-1B renewal is looming in 2026 or 2027 to start thinking about your green card plan. By then, your options might be severely limited, or it could simply be too late. So to wrap up, this H-1B overhaul really is a fundamental game changer for skilled worker immigration in the U.S. It's imposing a truly staggering cost on many employers. And it's creating, profound uncertainty about renewals, about changing jobs, even about just traveling internationally for potentially tens of thousands of foreign employees already here. That window for short-term stability, it effectively slammed shut on September 21, 2025.
That's right. For anyone currently relying on an H-1B visa, the information paints a clear picture. Short-term risk. It's manageable if you remain physically present inside the United States, but long-term professional security, personal security for you and your family, that now absolutely requires immediate, decisive action towards securing permanent residency. We really hope this analysis has helped clarify the immediate challenges and also the future path presented by this new policy matter. All the best.
And we will meet again with another important matter again.